arepas, tropical fruit, 2- and 3-toed sloths, and some of the most diverse wildlife on the planet. You're going to learn about Venezuela and improve your listening skills. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. Craig, how are you?
I'm feeling very well, thank you. I'm ready to podcast. I'm here with my water, my notes, I'm wearing sunglasses, and I'm ready to go. How are you?
I'm raring to go, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say about this, because I know that you visited Venezuela.
I have, and I'm looking forward to talking about it and finding out some more facts and information about this lovely country. But first, we have a voice message from our friend Rafa, who is almost a neighbour from Valencia, but in the area of Mislata. So here's Rafa from Valencia.
Hello Reza, hello Craig, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and to all of your listeners. My name is Rafael, I'm from Mislata, Valencia, Spain. Craig, I met you a few weeks ago in a chat on Zoom, a chat that you organized, and I wanted to tell you that it was perfect. You were very friendly, very patient with us, and we enjoyed it a lot. And as a challenge for you this new year, I wanted you to talk about my wife's country. This country is Russia, and I think it can be interesting for your audience because it's a big country and with a very interesting history. So if you like, you can talk about it. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you, Rafa, for sending in your message. And yes, I would like to do more Zoom chats with Patreon supporters this year. So keep watching your email inbox. And when I can, I'll organise another Zoom chat so that we can meet each other, see each other, at least virtually, and get to know each other a little bit. I really enjoyed meeting you on camera when we had that Zoom chat. So thanks for attending and coming to that. What do you think, Reza? Russia podcast?
Yes, thanks for your message, Rafa. That's a great idea. Russia is a country I've always wanted to visit, but I haven't had the chance yet. So I'd love to prepare a podcast about Russia.
Yep, we'll definitely do that. We do these country podcasts every now and again, every so often from time to time. Keep listening and we will do one on Russia, but we don't like to put the country podcasts too close together. So we'll leave a few episodes of space between the next country episode. Keep listening and we will create an episode for you about Russia.
We've no objections to doing podcasts about any country, but you probably noticed that yes, we have focused so far above all on either Spanish-speaking countries or English-speaking countries, simply because this is an English podcast. It's about learning English, so it's useful to know about countries where they speak English as a native language. And why the Spanish-speaking countries? Because it's designed above all for Spanish speakers. So that's why we've been a little bit biased, perhaps. Biased means not neutral in our choice of countries up to now. But yeah, we'd love to do a podcast about Russia or any other country you can think of.
One thing, Rafa, we understood everything you said in your message and it was clear. We are very used to hearing a Spanish accent. I would suggest, though, try and work a little on your pronunciation. We have mentioned recently on other podcasts, YouTube channels, for example, where you can go to improve your pronunciation. So focus a little on that. Individual sounds and connected speech will help your message be a lot more effective.
We've got a voice message now from Vanessa from Venezuela.
Hi Reza, hi Craig. It's Vanessa Cantos again from Venezuela. This time I just want to say to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, a better New Year than this one. Just want to say thank you again for your work. The podcast is really interesting for me, informative and fun at the same time. So that combination is really nice. I'll be waiting for the episode about Venezuela because I already heard your last podcast, your last episode, and you said that you have pending that topic. So I'll be waiting for that. Well, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will contact you next year. Bye bye.
Merry Christmas, Vanessa, and Happy New Year. And of course to Rafa and to everyone listening to the podcast. We're recording this in January 2021, so Happy New Year to everybody. Vanessa isn't the only person listening in Venezuela and not the only person who has requested an episode on Venezuela. So Vanessa and everybody else, you need to wait no longer.
Thank you very much for your message, Vanessa. You have very, very good pronunciation, and I was listening very carefully, and you didn't make any mistake at all. So what a fantastic recording. Well done.
Yes, the same, exactly. Fantastic. Well done, Vanessa. So let's look at Venezuela. Where is it? Well, you probably know more or less where it is. It's on the northern coast of South America. It shares its border with Brazil in the south, with Colombia in the west, and Guyana in the east. And the islands of Trinidad and Tobago lie to the northeast of Venezuela.
I'm sure most of you have heard of the capital city of Venezuela, Caracas, and the population of that is about 2 million. Did you know that the population of the entire country is around 30 million? So quite a large population.
If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that Reza is the expert on flags and usually speaks about flags. But this time I decided to do a little bit of research, and I was interested to see that the colours on the Venezuelan flag are yellow, blue and red. The yellow represents the wealth, the richness of the land of Venezuela. The blue represents the sea that separates Venezuela from Spain. And the red represents the blood that was shed, S-H-E-D, or spilled, we could say, by the heroes of the independence, which happened in 1821. That's what I discovered. But then Reza added some more information. What did you discover also, Reza?
Well, I'm sure, Craig, you already knew that it's very similar to the flags of Colombia and Ecuador. I always get confused between them. I know that they're similar, but I never remember exactly which is which. But they all have the yellow, the blue, and the red. That much I always do remember, but which is which confuses me. It's no surprise because those three countries, Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela, in fact, Panama as well, they once formed what was called Gran Colombia.
Yes.
Which was a newly independent country which existed after independence from Spain. So the fact that they all have similar flags shouldn't surprise us. But one interesting thing about the Venezuelan flag, which I bet a lot of people didn't know, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't have known if I hadn't Googled it, it used to have 7 stars. Well, I say used to, but I imagine there's probably debate about this even in South America. I don't know, but it used to have officially 7 stars representing the 7 provinces that make up the nation of Venezuela. But I don't know if you know, listeners, in 2006, not that long ago, an 8th star was in fact added. And this 8th star symbolizes another province called Essequibo province, which is actually in neighboring Guyana, or most of it is in Guyana, but Venezuela has a long-standing, unresolved claim to that land.
So they're saying it belongs to them, and that's why they put the extra star on the flag.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not a new claim, it's long-standing, so they've been saying this for decades, but recently they decided to add this 8th star to symbolize this. In fact, I did a little bit of extra research into it, and the British are involved in this. Decades ago, the Venezuelan government, perhaps with a certain amount of justification, blamed the British because they helped broker the deal, to negotiate with Venezuela and newly independent Guyana about where the border should be.
The British were the middlemen, the people in the middle during the negotiations.
Yes, because of course Guyana, which is the neighbor of Venezuela on the east, used to be a British colony.
That's right.
And so the British helped decide where the border should be, but a lot of Venezuelans thought, probably with justification, that they were biased towards Guyana because that was where they had more influence. So I don't think a lot of British people know this. I certainly didn't know it till a few days ago about the fact that the Venezuelan government has had for decades a certain claim against the British. They feel that they've been unfairly treated as regards the border.
So that's why we now see 8 stars on the flag. Well, as always, I'm very impressed by your deep, deep knowledge of world flags.
Don't thank me, thank Google.
When I think of Venezuela, I very often think of oil and petrol and gas because Venezuela has very rich resources of oil. But it wasn't always the case. Before the First World War, most of the country's revenue or money came from exporting coffee and cocoa. So the economy was mainly based on agriculture. Although when oil was discovered, obviously it's worth more money. And these days, Venezuela is one of the world's leading exporters of oil.
I'm ashamed to say that only this week, when I researched a little bit into all of this, did I discover where the name Venezuela comes from. I had no idea.
Me neither.
But it comes from Italy. Let me explain. The word Venezuela, it's a diminutive, it's a slightly altered version of the Italian word Venezia. Forgive my bad Italian pronunciation, Venezia, which in English would be Venice. Because when the Italian explorer and cartographer, a person who invents or makes up maps, Amerigo Vespucci, when he first saw the houses on stilts are like poles, long sticks, pieces of wood, over water in Venezuela in the Guajira Peninsula, it reminded him, this Italian man, of Venice. Of course, Venice is the city built over water. Everybody knows that. So it reminded him of Venice. So Venezia, he came up with a word which wasn't exactly Venezuela, something like Venezuela or something like that, I don't know, in Italian, but it quickly got adopted by the Spanish to Venezuela, like the little Venice. So Venezuela is little Venice.
It makes a lot of sense. When I look at the word Venezia, Venice, Venezuela, very similar. And that's really, really interesting. I had no idea.
By the way, this guy, I mean, este tío, this bloke, Amerigo Vespucci, a very important person in certainly the naming of South America, because he gives us no less than the word America. Amerigo Vespucci gave us the word America. America is named after this man.
Interesting. We can't really speak about Venezuela without speaking a little bit about the politics, although when doing research for this podcast, it is quite complicated, very diverse, and not easy to explain. The word that kept repeating in the information I was reading was the word coup, which actually is a French word, not an English word. Coup, C-O-U-P-S, coup d'etat. That happened many times, and there have been also attempted coups and a long history of power struggles in Venezuela. To struggle is luchar, to struggle or fight for power. Now, at the moment, Nicolás Maduro is the president of Venezuela, or is he? We're recording this in January 2021, and on the 23rd of January 2019, the president of the National Assembly, Juan Guaido, was declared the interim president by the National Assembly. The interim president means the president for the time being, a kind of temporary president. Now, Guaido has been recognized as the acting president of Venezuela by about 60 countries worldwide. However, there are some countries, for example, China, Cuba, Russia, Syria, Turkey, Iran, who continue to support Maduro. On the 6th of January 2021, just a few days ago, all of the members of the European Union stopped recognizing Guaido as president. So the EU does not recognize Maduro as the legitimate president, and they're planning to promote his removal. So it's not clear at all what's going to happen in the future regarding Venezuela's president. This is obviously fairly worrying for the country, and again, political turmoil, political problems seem to be on the horizon.
Yes, all we can say is obviously we don't want to get into a political debate. We're not here to talk about politics, but of course, let's be honest, in 2021, when you think about Venezuela, you do think about political problems. We just hope that you resolve your problems very quickly. Other countries have political problems as well, but Venezuela has suffered for a long time from its division. But hey, this is January 2021, and look what happened in Washington just a few weeks ago. So you're not the only country has problems. Let's get that clear. But we hope your political problems are over soon. But I tell you what, let's get away from politics. Let's go to a nicer place. Let's talk about some interesting facts.
Yes, and I was lucky enough to visit Venezuela in 2006. And one thing I did notice as a man is the beautiful women in Venezuela. So really it was no surprise to me to learn that Venezuela has had more Miss World winners than any other country. They've won Miss World 6 times. If you're curious about second place, that goes to UK and India, who have both won 5 times. So leading the world in beautiful women as far as the Miss World competition goes is Venezuela.
Yeah, I have to say, personally, I don't really care about the Miss World competition, who wins it or not. But I had noticed that because I'm alive, I have vein in my blood, that a lot of Venezuelan women are extremely beautiful. Whether they win the Miss World competition or not, I have to say, maybe this sounds really bad the way it's being recorded, but my eye has been drawn on more than one occasion to a Venezuelan woman for her beauty. I have noticed that there seem to be a lot of very beautiful women from Venezuela.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was there with my wife as well, touring the country. It was just, yeah. Moving on to nature.
We're staying with nature, really.
Staying with nature, but more of the 4-legged variety. Venezuela is considered to be among the 17 most mega diverse countries in the world and is home to the largest living rodent. Now, a rodent, rodent, is a small animal, usually small, like a rat or a mouse. But this particular rodent, called the capybara, is 1 meter long on average and over half a meter high, and weighs approximately 35 to 66 kilograms. Reza, can you imagine coming home one day and finding one of those in your house? You'd think you were on drugs or LSD or something, and you see this huge rat in the bathroom.
This is a type of rat. Coco, my dog, he's about 8.5 kilos. So this would be, 7, 8, 9, 10 times as big as Coco, who's a dog? Wow, that is incredible.
I don't think those little mouse traps with the small piece of cheese, you'd have to put like a whole cheese to catch this thing.
Or perhaps a machine gun to defend yourself against it. Heavy artillery.
The capybara is not the only exotic animal in Venezuela. It's also home to the jaguar. That's not the car, that's the animal. The Amazon crocodile also lives in the rivers of the Amazon. And I don't know if you've seen pictures, Reza, of an animal called the manatee, the sea cow, the manatee.
I have on wildlife programs, and I find it a fascinating animal. Really, I find it very attractive. The idea of like having a cow that swims, that's great.
I'd love to see them like live in their habitat. I didn't get the chance to see them when I was visiting the country, but I'd love to see the manatee in its natural habitat. Are there any other exotic animals around?
There are a lot. We could speak about the diversity of animals in Venezuela all day, but we haven't got time. Let's just mention a few more. The giant anteater. That's right, anteater. An animal that eats ants. But in Venezuela, they've got a giant one. So I guess it eats a lot of ants.
Did I tell you my joke about the anteater?
No?
What did one anteater say to the other anteater?
I don't know. What did he say?
Why the long face? I should explain for those who didn't get that joke. Anteaters have a long face physically, but idiomatically, if you say to somebody, why do you have a long face? It means, why are you grumpy? Why are you depressed? Why are you in a bad mood? Why have you got a long face? Why are you miserable? There's nothing funnier than a joke explained.
Another animal which has always fascinated me, and Venezuela is one of the few countries where you can find it, is the anaconda. The anaconda, I think is it technically a type of snake or not?
It is. I think it's the biggest, the largest snake, I think. Is that right?
They can be huge. Apparently, a really big anaconda, I mean, it could fill a room. And they quite often lie in kind of murky pools, charcos. And you wouldn't know it's there. And you get in, suddenly think, oh, there seems to be an enormous piece of rope around me. No, it's an anaconda, and you better get out of there pretty quick.
I would not like to mess with an anaconda, although I would quite like to be in the company of a sloth, a two-toed or a three-toed sloth.
Oh, me too. As you know, Craig, and some of the listeners perhaps in previous episodes have heard, that sloths are kind of my ideal creatures. They're heroes of mine. They dedicate their lives to taking it easy. That is the main aim of their life. So they live in Venezuela, a beautiful country full of diversity, plants, etc., lovely fruit. Eat the fruit, hang upside down and take it easy. You can't ask for more than that, really.
Pretty much what you do on a daily basis. Venezuela has count them, three World Heritage Sites. Canaima National Park, Ciudad Universitaria de Caracas, and the port of Coro.
Have you ever seen the Ciudad Universitaria?
No, but I saw the other two. I went to Canaima, where the Angel Falls are, and many other beautiful landscapes and plants. And I also went to Coro. But I didn't get a chance to see the Ciudad Universitaria.
From what I could see from the images I saw on the internet, Coro seems to be a very, very old port, very ancient, historic port. Is that right?
Yes, with beautiful buildings, very atmospheric and very attractive and just lovely to walk around and we can say soak in the atmosphere, absorb the atmosphere of the place. It's really, really nice.
And the Ciudad Universitaria in Caracas, that is also a World Heritage Site, but it's famed for its modern architecture. From what I could see, it looks like it was maybe built in the 50s or 60s, so it's very, very modernist, very unusual buildings. But sadly, I hear it's in need of repair. So I hope you're able to fix that building very soon, because it would be very sad to lose a World Heritage Site.
One reason we didn't go there when we visited in 2006 was that Caracas had the reputation of being quite a dangerous city. In fact, it has the second highest number of gun-related deaths in the world. This is based on the World Population Review website in 2020. Only Honduras has more. So that's the reason we didn't go to Caracas and tour around the city, because we thought it might be too dangerous.
But you know what? We'd love to hear from you. If you happen to live in Caracas or anywhere in Venezuela and you know Caracas or anywhere, tell us your opinion. Do you think that this statistic should worry us, or is your day-to-day life very normal and you don't really notice these things? We just read the statistics from internet, but if you live in Venezuela, have you seen gun crime? Or have you never seen it? I don't know. By the way, just because there's a lot of gun crime doesn't mean that a place is like hell on earth, because in the top 5 or 6, we've also got the United States. Yep. Top 5 or 6 in the world. And Brazil, we know we got a lot of Brazilian readers as well. And hey, I come from Belfast, and we've seen a few guns in our time as well, and a lot of terrorist activity. But I never felt that I was like living in hell or anything like that. So we'd love to know your opinion on this.
Yes, please tell us what it's like to live in Caracas. I think when you live in a city that could be dangerous, you very quickly learn where to go and where not to go. The problem with visiting it as a tourist is that first of all, you look like a tourist. You're probably holding a camera and you look different to the local population. And secondly, you don't really know where to go in the city. You don't know the dangerous areas, the places you should keep away from. I think that's a big problem as well when you're a tourist.
Another thing that I always think of when I think of Venezuela, apart from beautiful women and the wildlife and that type of thing.
And the sloths.
I always think of sloths, is oil. I always think of Venezuela and oil because, of course, it has the largest proven oil reserves in the world. A proven oil reserve means that scientifically they know as a fact that there are reserves under the ground. It's just that so far they haven't been able to drill them and to extract them, to get them out. But they know they're there. So Venezuela has the largest reserves in the whole world, even more than Saudi Arabia and countries like that. So it shouldn't surprise anybody to hear that it also has the cheapest fuel prices in the world. Unfortunately, and I'm sorry, this is probably a sore point for some Venezuelan listeners.
What's a sore point?
A sore point means that it's reminding you of something that you probably don't like being reminded of. A sore point. You have to queue hours and hours to buy it. So it's a weird kind of contradiction. Venezuela has a hell of a lot of oil already. It's got the biggest proven resources. Yet, sadly, because of embargoes and political reasons and other complications, people often have to queue many, many hours to get it. But when they do get it, it's extremely cheap.
Venezuela has the highest waterfall in the world. Angel Falls in the park we mentioned earlier, Canaima National Park, reaches 979 meters high. And I remember when we were there approaching the waterfall from the river from below, it's incredible. Not only the waterfall itself, which isn't very wide, but it's very, very high. The area, the river and the national park itself is absolutely beautiful. And it was a stunning image to see the waterfall from below. And then we climbed up to the top. That was a fantastic day.
Craig, speaking of water, when you were in Venezuela, did you visit Lake Maracaibo?
No, that was a place I didn't get to. What's special about it?
Well, Lake Maracaibo is the largest lake in all of South America. In fact, it's also one of the oldest lakes in the world, somewhere between 20 and 40 million years old. So it's been around for a long, long time.
We didn't visit the lake, but one place we did visit in the Canaima National Park was Roraima, which is like a high plateau in the Gran Sabana. They have mountains that are flat at the top. They're called tabletop mountains, and they're about 1,000 meters above the level of the savannah. And when you get up to the top, it's like visiting a world that time has forgotten. I don't know if you've read Arthur Conan Doyle's book, The Lost World.
I've certainly heard of it. I don't think I've read it, but it's a very famous book.
They have, for example, exotic plants and plants that eat meat, meat-eating plants, and it's a place that looks to be from another planet. And I remember that really impressed me. It was a beautiful, beautiful place to visit.
One final curious, surprising little fact about Venezuela. It relates to Vanessa's message. Vanessa wished us a Merry Christmas. I suppose she recorded the message in December. Did you know, Craig, it's customary for inhabitants of Caracas to go to church to hear the Christmas Mass on roller skates?
On roller skates? Wow, no, I didn't know that. Do you know why they do that, where that tradition started?
I've no idea where it started, but of course, when you read these things on internet, you think, yeah, right, someone's made that up. I checked it 5, 10 different sites. They all said the same, so I'm presuming it's true. Vanessa, did you go to Christmas Mass on roller skates? Where on earth does this tradition come from? We'd love to know.
Yeah, anyone listening who's from Venezuela or living in Venezuela, please tell us. And I also read that it's a very urban country, so most of the population seems to be settled in and around Caracas and in the north of the country. So I'd also be interested to know if this tradition is only in Caracas or whether you go to church on roller skates in other parts of the country as well.
Now, Craig's had the good fortune of visiting Venezuela. I haven't, but I have personally come to face with a little piece of Venezuela which I love, which is arepas. Let's talk about Venezuelan food. I love arepas. Do you, Craig?
Me too. And I love trying the different fillings because you can get arepas with fish, with meat, all different kinds of meat and fillings and spices. And that was one thing we really enjoyed, was tasting the different arepas all times of the day, for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. It was amazing.
Craig, can you remember the arepas that you had in Venezuela, specifically in Venezuela? Did they put the filling inside, so it was like a real filling, or did they put it on top, so really it was a topping? Because I know Venezuela and Colombia argue about this. One country does one thing and one does the other. Can you remember what happens in Venezuela? Is it inside or on top?
I remember inside, having the filling inside, and the arepas being very soft and spongy and delicious. I'm almost positive that the filling was inside, yes. But I remember the taste. I remember really enjoying the arepas. And another dish we really enjoyed called pabellón criollo, which is the Venezuela's national dish. It's pulled beef, that's Pull to pulled beef, which is very tender, very soft meat beef with spicy rice and black beans. And it's usually served with plantains or a fried egg on top. And that was really delicious too.
When you say plantain, what do you mean?
Think of a banana and a bigger, not so sweet banana, which I think is the masculine of the fruit. Is that right? You tend to fry it because it's not as sweet to eat as the other bananas. So it's like a banana, but bigger and very nice when you fry it in oil.
Is there any other typical Venezuelan dish that you tried when you were there?
We loved mandocas for breakfast. Mandocas is like a donut. Think of a donut, but it's made with cornmeal and plantains again. And you can have them sweet or you can have them salty or savoury. They are deep fried, served with white cheese or butter, and they really fill you up. They really do fill you up in the morning, so they're great for breakfast. I could not eat more than one or two, and they're not very big, but they're just very filling.
Now, Craig, when I think of Venezuela and the history of Venezuela, and indeed South America in general, one person always comes to mind, Simón Bolívar.
He seems to be everywhere, doesn't he?
Yeah. In fact, the official name of the country is La República Bolivariana de Venezuela. It gets translated in English as something as the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. So obviously, Simón Bolívar is an extremely important figure in Venezuela's history. Can you tell listeners a little bit about Bolivar, Craig?
Well, I can try to tell you his full name, which is fairly long. Simón José Antonio de la Santísima Trinidad Bolívar y Palacios Ponte Andrade y Blanco.
That is a long name.
How big would your passport have to be to have that name on it? Bolivar was a military and political leader, and he's very important not only in Venezuelan history but in that whole area. He played a key role. To play a role is papel, and if you play a key role in something, you play a very important role in it. So Bolivar played a key role in Latin America's successful struggle for independence from the Spanish, and he's considered one of the most influential politicians in the history of the Americas. During his lifetime, to give you some idea, he led Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia to independence from Spain. So a very, very influential man.
Now, a name that most people know, we could say it's a high street name.
Especially in Spain.
Especially in Spain, but I think in the United States and lots of countries as well, is Carolina Herrera. I didn't know until we prepared this podcast that she's Venezuelan.
Me neither.
So the famous fashion designer Carolina Herrera was born in Venezuela.
Another famous person from Venezuela, Felix Hernandez, otherwise known as King Felix, a very famous baseball pitcher. To pitch means to throw. So if you are a baseball pitcher, you throw the baseball. He was born in Valencia, but not the Valencia where Reza and I are podcasting from. There's another Valencia in Venezuela, and he was born there in 1986. He played Major League Baseball for the Seattle Mariners from 2005 to 2019. And when he was younger, he could throw the ball so fast, like over 160 kilometers an hour. 100 miles per hour is the speed of his pitch. In fact, there are many, many famous Venezuelan baseball players. We're not going to mention all of them here, but King Felix is just one example because together with football, baseball is one of the most popular sports in the country. Football is officially the national sport, but I think baseball is a very, very close second. It's hugely popular in Venezuela.
Turning to the arts and culture, a name which many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with is the actor Edgar Ramirez. You might know him from such films as The Bourne Ultimatum, where he played alongside Matt Damon, and also another film which we've already mentioned, in fact, called Manos de Piedra. That was the film about Roberto Duran, the famous Panamanian boxer. So we've mentioned that in the podcast about Panama. And he also starred in the TV miniseries called Carlos. Now, Craig, who is Carlos?
Yes, Carlos, otherwise known as the Jackal. His full name, Ilich Ramirez Sanchez. And the Jackal was possibly one of the most infamous terrorists that the world has known. He was born in Venezuela and he once was the most wanted man in the world. He committed many atrocious and horrible terrorist acts. Is he still alive, Reza?
As far as I know, according to internet, he is, which really surprised me. I remember first hearing about him way back in the 1970s. There was a film made about him called, I think, The Jackal, or The Day of the Jackal, or something like that.
I think The Day of the Jackal was the book by Frederick Forsyth, and somebody interviewed him once and saw in his room that book, The Day of the Jackal by Frederick Forsyth, and that's where the nickname, El Apodo, the Jackal comes from, because of that book in his room.
Right. So did you know, I didn't know this, I knew that he was involved in many strange and murky, M-U-R-K-Y, murky means black, mysterious, difficult to clarify activity, but you name it, he's done it. You name it means whatever you can think of. He's been involved with Palestinian paramilitary groups. He's been involved with the Soviet Union, East Germany, Cuba. Many, many countries have at least, if not used his services, certainly consulted him, because he was known to be an extremely professional organizer of agitation, revolt,
and terrorism,
that type of thing. And he freely admits, so sorry if we offend anybody listening, but he admits himself in interviews that he has been responsible for many, many deaths.
There are, of course, many more famous people and infamous people connected to Venezuela, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. So we'll stop there. It's your turn now to practice your English. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about today's podcast or anything related to English, please let us know. You can send your voice messages via the SpeakPipe app. Go to SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/Inglespodcast. Or if you prefer to contact us by email, my email address is Craig, Craig, @inglespodcast.com, or you can reach Reza at belfastreza, Reza, @gmail.com.
Why not visit our online store? Go to store, store, store.mansioningles.net, and there you'll find courses and ebooks and other interesting material to help you practice all aspects of your English.
And before we go out the door today, thank you to all of you who are helping us by your support on Patreon. You can see a list of our Patreon supporters at the website Patreon, patreon.com/Inglespodcast. We don't have time to mention all of you. We just want to say a big thank you and also mention our latest Patreon supporters. Who are they, Reza?
They are Julian or Julian, Pilar Carro, Carlos Samboshi, Mariano, Juan Pablo Guerramarin, Francesco Costanzo, Helmut Cooking, and Javi Menaje. Thank you very much to you and all our Patreon sponsors.
Yes, thank you. We really appreciate it. And if you would like to join that lovely list, you can join for a minimum of $1.20 centimos per month, or $1.20 per month, including tax. You get instant access to recent transcriptions that we have written out for you, every word that we say on the podcast. Go to patreon.com/Inglespodcast. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, we're talking about changing habits.
That's a subject we've been asked to talk about, and also a favourite subject of mine. So I'm really looking forward to next week's podcast. Until then, thank you for listening today. It's goodbye from Reza.
And goodbye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later. Music also by Jason Shaw from audionautics.com. Creative Commons International License 4.0.
I believe that he's a slightly controversial figure in Valencia. In Venezuela. Valencia. I believe that he's slightly controversial
In Valencia.
Valencia.